where you scream to watch that, watch this, and I'll dive down through this hairy flesh.
Hi and welcome to Watch This. I'm CJ Johnson, momentarily to be joined by Danielle McGrane. We had a preview of the Oscars last week and now we are going to do a little bit of a post-Oscars wrap-up. Now, you may be thinking, how do I get to be on your show? Well, first you've got to be nominated for an Oscar. And the best way to get nominated for an Oscar is to go to AFTRS, the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. They offer courses right here at Fox Studios where we shoot Watch This. So you go there, study a bit of filmmaking, get nominated for an Oscar, and then Danielle McGrane and I will analyse your chances when you arrive at that event. Now Danielle joins me in the studio to have a bit of a wrap-up. Danielle, I got to say a mea culpa, because last week I was sort of saying that, you know, all these problems that the Academy was doing and blah, 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 could result in a train wreck. And yet, actually, I thought, as a ceremony, that thing was almost smooth as silk.
I loved it.
Yeah, me too.
It was way better. I
Yeah.
just thought, no need for a host.
Yeah.
Please, can we go forward with this idea of loads of fun guests, Hollywood guests, but also, you know, Serena Williams, you know, they don't necessarily have to be actors, nominated directors. Tom Morello is in there from Rage Against the Machine. It was great. It was a great mix of actual Hollywood entertainment. So it went right back to the traditional, probably, idea that you were more interested in, that sort of classic Hollywood Oscars.
Yes, well that did make me happy because they got rid of all the gaff. They didn't have pizzas sent, they didn't go across the street, they just did awards. And what we really got was really terrific acceptance speeches. And because they weren't hidden under all this guff, we really got to listen to them. And I thought the acceptance speeches this year were tremendous. And the best thing about them was that, you know, they were so diverse. Like, there was a period there where there was nothing but women winning, and they were women of color, and they were Asian, and they were black. And I was showing it, you know, to my students. I was watching with my students, and I was proud that this was what they were seeing. You know?
Yeah, well, look, it was, I think, an absolute record breaker for women. 13 walked away with Oscars, which is the highest amount. There was also a lot of diversity in the fact that there was a lot of African American people, you know, winning in categories for the first time. Best costume design, that was the first time an African American woman won that award.
Best production design.
Yep, that's the other one. So, I mean, that was amazing to see. And I think what I liked as well about the presenters, so the fact they had all these guest hosts, they all threw a little bit of their own humour in there. I felt like there was a little bit of personality, you know. Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones came in and made a sort of a dig about Khaleesi and the dragons and lending them to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And, you know, little things like that, some of them worked, some of them didn't. But it was nice to see a little bit more of that sort of personality.
Yeah, I thought that Game of Thrones joke reference was bad because to me, I don't like it when someone references the thing that they're known for outside of it, because it's arrogant. It assumes that everyone watches my show. Do you know what I mean?
To be fair, everybody watches Game of Thrones.
Oh, I
There's
know
no getting away
who
with that.
don't. I know so many people who don't watch
most people would
Game of
know what she's discussing and talking about the dragons. I don't think it was meant in a way that was, you know, egotistical. I think she was just trying to make a funny joke and a bit of a reference and make it a bit personal. And I liked that. Whether it was funny or not, I liked that they all had the opportunity to do that, because it's a bit staid otherwise, isn't it?
Oh yeah, John Maloney, is it Maloney? Or, yeah, John Maloney and Awkwafina. I think they were very, very, very funny.
They were great.
They were terrific.
Well, I watched and I thought, actually, she would have been a great host.
Yeah.
If they needed one. There's an excellent idea. Or, you know, we had Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Maya Rudolph at the beginning, a lot of people calling for them to host it as well. So, I mean, there are options there if they do want to go back to
I don't think they will. I think everyone is across the board suggesting that this was really good without a host and that they only need to do kind of what they've done, which is, you know, keep the presenters funny and fun and bubbly, allow them to, you know, go off script if they're good at it, and have people like those three performers to maybe just do a quick introductory monologue.
Sort of anchor it, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, we approve. Going forward.
And they brought it in at 3 hours and 20 minutes, and
Pretty
which
impressive.
was getting closer to the 3 hours that, you know, their parent broadcaster ABC is insisting on. So what were some of the highlights for you besides the diversity, the presenters, and the quips of the hosts, or the presenters?
Olivia Colman.
Ooh, it's genuinely quite stressful. This is hilarious. Got an Oscar. Okay. I have to thank lots of people. If, by the way, I forget anybody, I'm going to find you later. I'm going to give you all a massive snog, and I'm really sorry that if I might forget now. But Yorgos, my best director in the best film, and with Emily and Rachel, the two loveliest women in the world to fall in love with and to go to work with every day. I mean, you can imagine, it wasn't a hardship. And to be in this category with these extraordinary women, and Glenn Close, you've been my idol for so long, and this is not how I wanted it to be, and I think you're amazing. I love you very much. I love you all. Thank you. Lindy King, my agent, who took me on over 20 years ago, thank you so much. And Olive and Hildy and Brynna, who made me do things that I said no to, but she was right. And my mum and my dad. Well, you know. And my kids who are at home and watching, look. Well, if you're not, then, well, kind of well done. But I sort of hope you are. This is not going to happen again. And any little girl who's practicing their speech on the telly, you never know. And when I used to work as a cleaner, and I loved that job. I did spend quite a lot of my time imagining this. Oh, please wrap up. Right, okay. And thank you. And my husband, Ed, my best friend, I love you so much. 25 years, you've been my best supporter, and he's gonna cry. I'm not. And thank you so much. Fox, everybody, the cast, the crew, Francis, Sam, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Lady Gaga, and Melissa. Thank you.
I think that's probably everybody's favourite moment, isn't it?
That was my big swing that I got.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
Congratulations. I was just so pleased for her in that moment. I think that was fantastic. So, look, that was definitely up there. I think that performance, the Lady Gaga Bradley Cooper performance, I think I was, whew, that was some hot stuff, wasn't it?
It was. Can I just go back to the Olivia Colman speech for a
Sure.
second? What's fun about that is that everyone in the world is saying, besides the fact that they're very happy that she won and they love her performance and everything, they're all saying, what a great speech, what a great speech. But of course, if you were to analyze it as rhetoric, it's a terrible speech. But what it is we were just so happy to see someone so flustered, someone so honest that, you know, it's like great speech, because what we saw was a person, you know, we saw humanity.
I thought
it was lovely.
I did genuinely think it was a great speech, because some people have said that to me afterwards, that was a terrible speech. It sounded unprepared. You know, you're one of 5 nominees. You should prepare a speech. If you actually listen to it, she has thanked everybody important. Like she hits the director almost straight away, Yorgos Lanthimos. She thanks him almost immediately. She thanks her co-stars. She thanks her husband. She thanks her children. She remembers the important people that some people often forget.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but when Rami Malek made his speech, he didn't even mention Freddie Mercury's name when he won the award for Bohemian Rhapsody.
Didn't he?
No.
Oh, oh my God. My mom is in here somewhere. I love you. I love you, lady. My family, thank you for all of this. You know, my dad didn't get to see me do any of this. He's not, but I think he's looking down on me right now. So this is a monumental moment. One, I'm so appreciative to all of you, to everyone who has had a hand in getting me here, to the Academy, to people who took a chance on me every step of the way. Graham King, Dennis O'Sullivan, everyone at Fox and New Regency, thank you guys so much. I may not have been the obvious choice, but I guess it worked out. Thank you, Queen. Thank you guys for allowing me to be the tiniest part of your phenomenal, extraordinary legacy. I am forever in your debt. My crew, and my cast, I love you. You are my equals. You are my betters. I could have never been here without you. I think about what it would have been like to tell little Bubba Rami that one day this might happen to him, and I think his curly-haired little mind would be blown. That kid was, he was struggling with his identity, trying to figure himself out, and I think to anyone struggling with theirs and trying to discover their voice, listen, we made a film about a gay man, an immigrant who lived his life just unapologetically himself. And the fact that I'm celebrating him and this story with you tonight is proof that we're longing for stories like this. I am the son of immigrants from Egypt. I'm a first-generation American, and part of my story is being written right now, and I could not be more grateful to each and every one of you and everyone who believed in me for this moment. It is something I will treasure for the rest of my life. Lucy Boynton, you're the heart of this film. You are beyond immensely talented. You have captured my heart. Thank you so much.
Wow.
So I remember hearing that and thinking, that was there a reason for him not to actually mention his name? He mentioned that he played a gay singer,
yeah,
but he didn't ever actually mention him by name. He didn't sort of thank Freddie, which I think a lot of people sort of expected him to do.
Well, Freddie Mercury certainly got mentioned a lot of times that night.
He sure did.
My favourite moment of, like, I suppose a more prepared moment of speech came from Domi Shi, who was one of the short film winners for the film Bow. They won for short film, best short film, and she said this.
Holy. It's our first time too.
Yeah, it's our first time too. Oh my gosh. Thank you to the Academy. Thank you to my fellow nominees. Thank you for supporting shorts. To all of the nerdy girls out there who hide behind their sketchbooks, don't be afraid to tell your stories to the world.
To all the nerdy girls out there who hide behind your sketchbooks, don't be afraid to tell your stories to the world.
That was great.
That was terrific.
Yeah.
And all my female students in my class were all just like, yeah!
Oh,
you know,
that's cool.
That's a really cool use of your platform, I think.
Yeah, but I think for someone like Olivia, I think she was just so genuinely surprised, wasn't she? So as you say, there was humanity and we loved that. But for somebody like, what was that girl's name?
Domi Shi.
For Domi Shi, for example, you know, that was a huge moment. Whereas Olivia Colman has been doing the sort of the awards circuit up to this point, hasn't she? She's already won a BAFTA and I think, you know, other awards, and she's had her chance to have that sort of choreographed moment. But Domi Shi is sort of really embracing that moment in the spotlight. Yeah. That's great to see. Yeah. What a good message.
And the other person who really embraced it was that woman who won Best Production Design for Black Panther.
Fantastic.
I mean, that speech was to the rafters, to the back row. That was out of the box, and it was just so inspiring.
Wow, I got it. Wow. This has been a long time coming. Spike Lee, thank you for my start. I hope this makes you proud. Marvel may have created the first Black superhero, but through costume design, we turned him into an African king. It's been my life's honor to create costumes. Thank you to the Academy. Thank you for honoring African royalty and the empowered way women can look and lead on screen. Thank you to my crews around the world who helped bring Wakanda to life. Our genius director, Ryan Coogler. You are a guiding force. Thank you for your trust in understanding my role in telling the African-American story. Adding vibranium to costumes is very expensive. So thank you, Victoria Alonso, Kevin Feige, Louis Esposito, Jeffrey Chernoff, Bob Iger, and Nate Moore. My career is built with passion to tell stories that allow us to know ourselves better. This is for my 97-year-old mother watching in Massachusetts. Mom, thank you for teaching me about people and their stories. You are the original superhero. Thank you.
For people who don't get it, for people who don't get why diversity at the Oscars is so important, if you were a little black girl who dreamed of working behind the scenes in the movies, you've never seen that before.
Absolutely.
And finally, for the first time, that's what you see. And for the first time, you can go, I'm allowed to do this. I can pursue this as a career path. And it's just so inspiring.
It is so inspiring. It was great to see her give a shout out to Spike Lee as well. I think she mentioned that he'd given her her start in the industry, and it was a big night for Spike too. He felt like a very prominent sort of attendee at that award ceremony, didn't he? In his purple suit and all the reactions, and when he won Best Screenplay, that moment with Samuel L. Jackson, it felt like a really big night for black people in the film industry.
Samuel L. Jackson, who is in his early 70s, so that moment when Spike Lee jumped up on him could have gone all sorts of other directions, including down into the orchestra pit. So I'm going to call out a couple of the lowlights. I mean, we're both on the same page. We loved it. It was great. Yay. The most ironic low point for me was that the Academy, said, we're not going to broadcast 4 of them. We're going to package them and quickly broadcast them, like, from the commercial breaks. And one of them is going to be hair and makeup, the winners. And everyone's like, no, no, no. So they said, okay, we'll broadcast all of them. And the hair and makeup one, which was the first one of the 4 they weren't going to broadcast to come along, was the worst acceptance speech in the history of the Oscars.
It was a train wreck. A train wreck.
It was 3 old people, and it looked like they couldn't read their own notes, and they were like, I mean, that was weird.
There was a lot of dead air as well, which you do not want in a broadcast. But I can't imagine what it is like to step up there. And as well, if they were already thinking that their award might not even be broadcast, I mean, the whole thing must have been very overwhelming in the run-up to it. But,
it certainly seemed for them.
Should try and get it together for the Oscars.
Yeah,
Come on.
I know. I mean, when you think about people who do hair and makeup, they're the kind of people who are able to spend hours and hours, painting people's faces for hours without saying anything. And, they don't tend to be the most gregarious people anyway.
Possibly not. Yeah, it's all about the art and the precision. So, yeah.
What about you? Did you have a sort of a low point?
Look, it's hard to go past the Best Picture, isn't it? Really, that was probably the biggest. Really, up to that point, I was really enjoying the night. It was ticking along. I thought, oh, these awards are, they were really spread out across the board. Yeah. I really felt like the people who deserved them got them. I was slightly heartbroken for Richard E. Grant, but he seemed pretty happy. He was very happy to see Barbra Streisand come on stage. That was cool.
Yep, that made up for it. He got to see Barbra Streisand.
And he had a very visible, wow moment, which was great to see.
Supposedly he's straight. I've not seen any evidence of it in his...
Oh, come on. He's in film. He's a performer. He can play whatever he wants. He's fantastic. Look, that was a bit disappointing, but the Best Picture. Green Book walking away with the Best Picture was a little bit disappointing, I have to say. I don't know. How did you feel about it?
Well, I had not seen Green Book until then, and so finally, obviously, it became my duty as a critic and as us doing this to see it. I think it's a very, very entertaining film that is absolutely ludicrously retrograde in how it portrays race relations. So no, I don't think it deserves Best Picture, and I think it is a disappointment, and I completely understand and empathise with everyone. And the closer you get to having skin in the game, the more I understand why culturally it is really off key. And so I think it's a bad decision, a bad choice. It's a shame, but that no one person decides these things. It is voted on. I understand that people are very entertained by it. It is very entertaining. Those 2 actors are terrific. I felt that in the room, you could really tell that choice disappointed, half the room. I felt that everyone accepting that award sounded defensive. I felt the screenwriter felt very defensive when he was accepting his award. And I also felt that everyone accepting awards for Bohemian Rhapsody felt defensive. And it's true that both of those pictures,
understandable though, isn't it? You would feel that way.
But rarely have I seen it before. Like there have been other films that have not been the critical darlings that have won awards. But generally, when those people stand up, they don't sound offensive. Whereas that guy, Nick whatever, who's the son of...
when he
accepted his award, he was basically he just sounded like, see ya. I mean, it was weird.
Yeah, it was strange, but you know, at least they feel that way. You know, you'd hope that they wouldn't go up there, you know, full of vim and vigor and think, yes, I completely deserve this. I mean, you'd hope that they're taking on board some of the rhetoric. I think that's what I was thinking when I watched it. I believe Spike Lee stormed out at that point.
He tried to storm out, but he couldn't get out. They wouldn't let him out.
Poor Spike. I mean, I can understand why he did that, but I've also been like, you know, reading around since it happened, and obviously with the preferential ballot, it's quite possible that Green Book was a lot of people's second or third choice, as we mentioned in the last show. But the other thing that keeps coming up is that there's this sort of anti-Netflix fear from the studios, and that's something else that probably may have influenced things a little bit. Green Book is such a classic studio, Hollywood studio film that, you know, Roma really was a much better film. They gave Alfonso Cuarón the Best Director award. He also won Best Foreign Film, but they're not going cinematography, but they're not going to go so far as to give Best Picture to it, which I think is probably what's really at play here.
Definitely. If you draw your paycheck from Paramount, Universal, Warner Brothers, Disney, you know, if you draw your paycheck from one of the Hollywood studios, you're going to put Roma at number 8 because Netflix is directly disrupting your paycheck.
It's a massive disruptor to this industry, but it now has these 3 very strong Oscars behind it. So going forward, I think Netflix is actually going to really start to take over, and other streaming services, obviously. It was very interesting that during the broadcast, that was when Netflix decided to air the trailer, or run the trailer for Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, which is their next sort of, I think, big hopeful push for awards season.
Now, I've got a single hot take. This is my hot take. I haven't drawn this from anywhere on the web or any of the podcasts I listen to. Nobody else has said this.
From the air.
I saw it on the thing, and this is the first time I'm mentioning it publicly. Okay, so the best score comes along. I think and hope it's going to go to the score for If Beale Street Could Talk, which was stunningly beautiful.
Agreed.
The Room really seemed to want it to go to Terence Blanchard for Black Klansman, which is also a really great score, really interesting, diverse, eclectic, and Terence Blanchard is a towering figure among composers. Towering figure. But it went to a guy named Ludwig Göransson for Black Panther. Now, it got announced, and he was sitting way back up, which is what happens when you're not the favourite. You know, they sit the favourites close, and because they try and make it like that. So he had a long way to walk. So he's walking from behind. The Room stood up and gave him a standing O. When you saw him land there, he was like 24. He was white. He was not what they were expecting. I think The Room heard Black Klansman and stood up, and he was winning for Black Panther.
Well,
because no one would stand up for Ludwig Göransson. I mean, you don't give a standing O to someone you've never heard of. You know, it just doesn't happen.
So I have to disagree with you. But I mean, I hear your point. But for the last year, since Black Panther has been released, the amount of people who have spoken to me about the music in that film and how incredible it is and how incredibly strong it is. And you have to remember that, you know, Black Panther is also a very, you know, visibly African-American movie. So again, they may have been expecting a black person to be on stage. But I think he held it together very well, didn't he? He gave a great speech.
Absolutely.
You know, and again, it's such a diverse film. The score and the soundtrack had a great diversity on there. There was like a Kendrick Lamar song on there. So, I mean, there is that, no matter who's put it together, the representation is of an African-American culture. So, yeah, they might have been disappointed. It was still a great win for Black Panther.
Oh, of course. I just chuckled because I was like, you never see this. You don't see anyone standing up for someone under the age of 30, you know, who no one's heard of. And I thought that it was like the ripple went through. Black Klansman, yeah. And then this guy gets up and you saw people like,
I think there's a little bit of that back patting going on, isn't there? Like, oh, look how diverse we are this year and things like that. So maybe there's a little bit of that too.
Well, it gets back to what I said last week. The more the ceremony went on, and once, you know, Alfonso Cuarón had his 3 Oscars, the more I wanted Black Panther to win because
for Best Picture.
Yes, for Best Picture. And so when Green Book did get announced, it just felt to me.
It was flat.
It was so flat.
You know what it was? It was like when La La Land supposedly won Best Picture, because that to me was a film that didn't deserve Best Picture. So that was a flat moment. And then obviously Moonlight was the real winner. And that made more sense at the time. But it was the same kind of feeling for me where I went, oh, how boring. How boring.
I was glad to see Damien Chazelle's First Man win Best Visual Effects because I think the visual effects people are very smart who they vote for, because they didn't just vote for the most visual effects for something like Black Panther or Avengers Infinity War or something. They voted for the best. And that film was seamless. You know, it really looked like footage from 1969. It was so well done. And this is the same people that voted for Ex Machina, you know, this tiny sort of $3 million movie with one special effect, which was the robot. And they gave it to that, you know, and I like how they think. They give it to smarts and cunning and cleverness rather than budget.
I guess they know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. But I mean, the big question that I have to ask you is, are Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper doing it?
See, this really annoys me because they're no longer in the same room. They have been in the same room for all the writing, all the rehearsal, all the shooting. So if they were doing it, they were doing it months ago. They were doing it 18 months ago.
I think that's what
And
people
now all of a sudden,
implying.
because of one close-up at the Oscars, everyone's like, are they doing it? It's like, why weren't you asking that? You know, this is now. It's tabloid fodder, it's clickbait, and I refuse to engage.
But it's fantastic. Look, aside from the question itself, the chemistry they had on stage was amazing. That was the standout performance of the night. There's not a lot of years during, you know, the Oscars that I remember those musical performances like that.
Yeah.
They're often interludes where, you know, we collect, we think, we gather, we wait for the next award. That was an absolute scene stealer moment. And I think it was really, really interesting to see that and to see a song get such prominence, because we don't see that enough, I think, because the music is so important. We've talked about soundtrack. To see a song almost overtake the actors within the film, to overtake a film that was really quite problematic, to have that moment, I think, on stage, that for me was a very special standout Oscars performance.
And it was beautifully directed. It was beautifully choreographed with the camera behind them. The way that Bradley took her up was very, 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 once again, you know, the females in my class gasped at that moment because it was so romantic and beautiful. It was exquisitely worked out. It was perfect. We also thought that the two, the cowboy and the cowgirl, the writers of the Ballad of Buster Scruggs song, they were great.
So Gillian
Welch, that song held the room.
Yeah, Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings are an incredible duo. They have been performing together for a long time. I mean, to be honest, if Shallow had not have been in there, that was the standout song. That probably would have walked away with it. They're so well respected, they're so well loved, and it is a great, and as a lot of people mentioned, that song, when it comes in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, is a really beautiful moment, and it could have been something a bit hammy, but it wasn't because of that music. So any other year, I think they would have walked away with the Oscar.
Wow.
So that again just shows the strength of that incredible song from that Lady Gaga wrote, you know, with her three co-writers.
As it was, everyone would have recognised them when they went to the parties afterwards as nominees, because unlike all the other nominees who don't get to stand up on stage, they would have stood out in those outfits.
Absolutely.
Well, delightful to go through this Oscars process with you.
Well, we'll have to start preparing for next year.
It'll come around again. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks. Danielle McGrane and CJ Johnson with your post-Oscars wrap-up. Thanks for watching Watch This.